Hello, we teach Hegelian philosophy at HegelCourses.com from the Netherlands. Join us and transform your understanding of philosophy. Enroll today.
Welcome back, everyone, to our deep dive into Hegel. Last time, we were grappling with some pretty heavy concepts. Spirit, the phenomenology, reflection, sublation.
A lot to unpack there.
We sure did. And we ended on a bit of a cliffhanger.
A doozy.
He kind of threw out this word, the absolute. And we promised we would dive into it today.
We did.
So are you ready to take on the absolute?
I think so. I've got my philosophical hiking boots on, you know.
Okay, good. So where do we even begin?
Yes.
What is the absolute? Last time we said it's not this mystical state.
Right.
It's not some kind of separate realm. It's the culmination of the journey of spirit.
Yeah. And it's where consciousness achieves this kind of complete self-knowledge.
Okay. But what does that actually mean? I mean, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Is it like enlightenment? Is it like, becoming one with the universe?
Those are all tempting ways to think about it. But I think for Hegel, it's something a little bit more down to earth than that.
Okay.
I mean, it's still pretty mind-blowing, but it's not about levitating or anything.
Okay, good. No levitation required.
No levitation required. It's more about this kind of radical shift in our understanding of ourselves and of reality.
Yep.
So, we talked last time about how, consciousness is always kind of reflecting on itself. It's encountering these contradictions. It's being forced to kind of sublate these contradictions and move to a new level of understanding.
Right.
And for Hegel, the absolute is what happens when this process is kind of like taken to its logical conclusion.
Okay, so it's like we're constantly expanding our understanding. We're constantly deepening our awareness. And the absolute is kind of like the endpoint of that process.
Well, it's tricky to call it an endpoint because for Hegel, it's also like a beginning.
Oh, okay. Always a twist with Hegel.
Right. But it's like, all these metaphors we've been using, like the river flowing into the ocean or the seed blossoming into a flower.
Okay.
The absolute is kind of like that. It's where, all these different streams of consciousness kind of like converge and they realize that they're all part of this like vast interconnected whole.
Okay. So it's like we're realizing that we're not separate from the universe, but we're actually like expressions of the universe. We're part of this like grand cosmic unfolding.
Exactly. Yeah. And that realization, that kind of fundamental shift in perspective is what Hegel calls absolute knowing.
Okay. But how do we get there? I mean, it sounds great in theory, but, I'm sitting here drinking my coffee. I'm still feeling pretty separate from the universe.
Right.
How do we actually make this leap to absolute knowing?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And I think for Hegel, it's not something that we can just like will ourselves into.
Oh, okay.
It's not like, I'm going to think really hard about the absolute and then I'll suddenly achieve it.
Right.
It's more about this kind of gradual process of working through all these different shapes of consciousness.
Okay.
And the phenomenology is kind of like, it's like a guidebook for that journey.
Okay. So it's like a map, but it's not like a map that you just look at and then you know where you're going. It's like a map that you have to actually walk through in order to understand.
Exactly, yeah. And I think one of the key insights that Hegel is trying to convey through the phenomenology is that, the path to absolute knowing is not this kind of like linear progression.
Okay.
Where we just kind of like, climb up the ladder of knowledge rung by rung.
Right.
It's more like a spiral.
A spiral. Okay.
Where we keep encountering these same themes, but each time we encounter them, we're encountering them at a deeper level.
Okay. So it's like we're circling around the absolute, but with each circle, we're getting closer and closer to the center.
Exactly, yeah. And, one of the ways that Hegel kind of illustrates this is through these really vivid and sometimes bizarre scenarios that he presents in the phenomenology.
Okay. Like what? Give me an example.
Well, one of the most famous ones is the master-slave dialectic.
The master-slave dialectic. Yeah, I've heard of that. That sounds intense.
It is.
What's that all about?
Well, it's about how self-consciousness develops through this struggle for recognition.
Okay, recognition from other people.
Yeah. So imagine you have two individuals.
Yeah, okay.
They encounter each other for the first time. And each one wants to be recognized by the other, not just as like a physical object, but as a self-conscious being.
Okay. So it's like I see you and I see that you see me.
Exactly, yeah. And for Hegel, this desire for recognition, it's not just like a vanity thing. It's actually like essential to our sense of self.
Okay. So it's like, if I'm not recognized by other people, then do I even really exist?
That's kind of the question that Hegel is posing.
Okay. Wow.
And in the master-slave dialectic, this desire for recognition, it escalates into this like life or death struggle.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So each individual is willing to risk their life in order to be acknowledged by the other.
Okay, so the stakes are pretty high here.
They are, yeah. And eventually, one of them does kind of like submit to the other. So we have the master and the slave.
Okay, so we have this power dynamic. Right. One person is dominant, one person is submissive.
Yeah. And it seems like, okay, that's the end of the story. The master has won, the slave has lost. But for Hegel, it's not that simple.
Okay, of course not. It's Hegel. There's always a twist.
Always a twist. And the twist here is that the master, who seems to be like free and independent,
Right.
actually becomes dependent on the slave.
Wait, the master becomes dependent on the slave.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, think about it. The master needs the slave to do all the work, right?
Okay, yeah, to cook their food and clean their house and all that.
Yeah, all the stuff that the master doesn't want to do.
Right.
But more importantly, the master needs the slave to recognize them as the master.
Oh.
So without that recognition from the slave, the master's power is meaningless.
So it's like the master needs the slave to kind of validate their existence as a master.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's this kind of like weird codependent relationship.
It is, yeah. And the slave, even though they're in this like subordinate position, they actually start to develop a kind of deeper understanding of the world.
Okay, how so?
Well, they're the ones who are actually like working with the world.
Okay, yeah, they're doing the actual labor.
Exactly. They're transforming the environment. They're shaping it to the master's will. And in doing so, they're kind of like gaining this kind of practical knowledge that the master doesn't have.
So the slave is kind of like getting their hands dirty, and in the process, they're learning something about the world, about themselves.
Yeah. And this is a classic example of what Hegel calls sublation.
Right, sublation. So the master-slave relationship is being kind of like negated and transformed.
Exactly.
But it's not just being destroyed, it's being lifted up to this like new level.
Right. And I think this is a really powerful illustration of how, for Hegel, spirit is always unfolding through these contradictions.
Okay.
It's not just this kind of like smooth upward progression. It's messy, it's full of conflict, it's full of struggle.
Right. And it's always pushing us to kind of like re-examine our assumptions, to question our understanding of ourselves and of the world.
Exactly. And I think the master-slave dialectic is just one of many examples that Hegel gives in the phenomenology of how this process works.
Okay, so there's a lot more to unpack here. A lot more twists and turns on this journey of spirit.
Oh, yeah. We're just getting started.
Well, I'm ready for more.
Okay, great. Let's keep going.
So what's the next stop on this Hegelian roller coaster?
Well, after the master-slave dialectic, Hegel takes us into the realm of what he calls unhappy consciousness.
Unhappy consciousness. Oh boy, that doesn't sound very fun.
It's not really, but it's an important stage in the development of spirit.
Okay. So what's so unhappy about this consciousness?
Well, unhappy consciousness is basically this experience of being divided against yourself. So on the one hand, you have this yearning for something more, right? This desire for unity, for wholeness. But on the other hand, you experience the world as being fragmented, as being alienating, and your desires are constantly being frustrated.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. It's like, that feeling of being caught between who you are and who you think you should be.
Exactly, yeah. Like you're constantly reaching for something that seems just out of reach.
Exactly.
And for Hegel, unhappy consciousness, it's not like a sign of failure or anything. It's actually like a necessary stage in the development of spirit.
Wait, so feeling unhappy is a good thing?
Well, it's not about glorifying suffering or anything like that.
Okay.
But it's about recognizing that suffering can actually play a role in our growth.
Okay.
So unhappy consciousness, it pushes us to confront the limitations of our current understanding. It forces us to kind of like wake up to the fact that we're not all powerful. We can't just impose our will on the world. We have to kind of like come to terms with the fact that the world is bigger than us.
Okay, so it's like hitting a wall, but instead of just giving up, we start to question the wall itself.
Exactly. And that questioning, that struggle to break free from our limited perspective, that's what propels spirit forward.
So it's like unhappy consciousness is the fuel that drives the engine of spirit.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. I'm starting to see how even the negative experiences, the painful experiences, can actually contribute to our growth.
Right. And for Hegel, unhappy consciousness, it's not something that we just kind of like get over and then it's done.
Yeah.
It's something that we kind of keep coming back to in different ways throughout the phenomenology.
Okay, so it's like a recurring theme.
Yeah. And it takes on different forms as spirit evolves.
Okay, so we're kind of like spiraling around this idea of unhappy consciousness.
Yeah.
Each time we encounter it, we understand it a little bit better.
Exactly. And I think one of the key insights that Hegel is trying to get at here is that, true happiness, true fulfillment, it doesn't come from just like ignoring or denying the negative aspects of existence.
Right.
It comes from like confronting them, grappling with them, integrating them into our understanding of the world.
So it's like we have to embrace the darkness in order to fully appreciate the light.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, this is heavy stuff, but I'm starting to see how it all connects together.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, but I think it's worth the effort.
Okay, I'm ready for more. Where does Hegel take us after unhappy consciousness?
Well, this might surprise you, but the next stop on our journey is the realm of reason.
Reason. Okay, that sounds more like it.
Yeah.
Finally, we get to use our brains to solve all the world's problems.
Well, not quite. Hegel's conception of reason is a little bit more complex than that.
Okay, I figured. It's Hegel. Nothing is ever simple.
Right, exactly. For Hegel, reason isn't just about logic and intellect. It's about recognizing our capacity to shape the world,
Okay.
to act in accordance with our understanding of ourselves and reality.
So it's not just about thinking, it's about doing. It's about putting our ideas into action.
Exactly, yeah. And Hegel sees reason at work in everything from scientific discoveries to the development of ethical and political systems. It's the driving force behind human progress.
Okay, so reason is a pretty big deal for Hegel.
It is, yeah. But he was also aware of the potential dangers of reason.
Okay, the dangers. How can reason be dangerous?
Well, think about it. Reason can be used for good or for evil. It can be used to create or to destroy.
Okay, right. I guess that makes sense.
And Hegel was particularly struck by the events of the French Revolution. Here was this movement that was fueled by the ideals of reason and liberty, but it descended into violence and chaos and ultimately tyranny.
Oh, right.
So for Hegel, this was like a cautionary tale. It was a reminder that even the most noble ideals can be corrupted.
Okay. So reason without compassion, reason without a deep understanding of human nature, it can lead to disaster.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this is a really important point that Hegel is making, especially for us today, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a world where, reason and technology are advancing at an incredible pace, but we're also facing all sorts of really complex problems like climate change and social injustice. And I think Hegel is reminding us that we can't just rely on reason alone to solve these problems.
Right, we need something more. We need something that can kind of like guide reason, that can give it direction. And for Hegel, that something more is what he calls Sittlichkeit.
Sittlichkeit. Okay, another one of those big German words.
Right, but it's basically what we would translate as ethical life.
Ethical life. Okay. So how does ethical life relate to reason?
Well, for Hegel, a truly rational society isn't one that's built on abstract principles that are imposed from above. It's one that's grounded in the concrete practices, traditions, and institutions that have evolved over time, reflecting the shared values and experiences of a community.
So it's like reason needs to be rooted in the soil of real human experience. It can't just be floating around in some abstract, idealistic cloud.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's a really important insight that Hegel is offering us. It's a way of thinking about progress and social change that avoids both the pitfalls of utopian idealism and the dangers of cynical resignation. It's about finding that sweet spot where reason is guided by ethical principles and a deep respect for human experience.
Okay, I like that. It's like a middle path between, blind faith in progress and just giving up altogether.
Exactly. And remember, we're still on this journey of spirit unfolding through the phenomenology.
Right. We've come a long way, but we're not done yet.
Not even close. And this exploration of reason, it's just one stage in that journey. There's so much more to explore, and it gets even more fascinating as we move towards spirit's ultimate self-realization in the absolute.
Okay, I'm ready for more. What's next? Welcome back, deep divers, to our ongoing exploration of Hegel's mind-bending philosophy.
Mind-bending is right.
I think my brain's doing yoga at this point.
Yeah, probably some advanced poses.
We've journeyed through the master-slave dialectic, felt those pangs of unhappy consciousness, wrestled with reason itself.
Quite a trek so far.
It's been a wild ride, and guess what?
There's more.
Oh, there's so much more. We're not even at the summit of this philosophical mountain yet. We haven't even truly glimpsed absolute knowing.
We're getting there, though.
We are, but before we ascend to those dizzying heights of absolute knowing, Hegel throws us a bit of a curveball.
A curveball? How so?
Well, after reason, he takes us into the realm of, wait for it, art.
Art. Huh. Okay, I'll bite.
I know, right? Seems like a sudden detour on this philosophical pilgrimage.
A little unexpected.
Yeah, like Hegel decided, hey, let's take a break from all this heavy thinking and go to an art museum. But of course, it's not that simple.
Never is with Hegel.
So how does art fit into this grand philosophical scheme of the phenomenology?
Well, remember, spirit is all about self-consciousness, right?
Yeah, spirit's that river, always flowing, always changing, becoming more self-aware.
Exactly. And for Hegel, art is one way that spirit expresses itself, makes itself visible in the world.
So it's like spirit's using art to communicate, not just through ideas, but with images and emotions, like a different language.
Precisely. Hegel even sees a kind of progression in art, mirroring the development of spirit.
Oh, interesting. So like different art movements reflect different stages of spirit's evolution?
Exactly. Think about those ancient Greek sculptures, all about harmony and balance, a kind of limited understanding of freedom, right? Then fast forward to the Renaissance, art explodes with dynamism, individuality, reflecting that growing awareness of human potential.
Wow, I'm seeing it now. Each artistic movement is like a snapshot of spirit at a certain moment, capturing its unique perspective on the world.
And for Hegel, this all culminates in Romantic art, where the focus turns inward, exploring those depths of human emotion, subjectivity, all that inner turmoil.
So, like, art becomes this mirror reflecting spirit's increasingly complex inner world.
Right on. And that sets the stage for Hegel's next audacious move. He takes spirit into the realm of religion.
Religion. Wow, okay, now we're really talking about a head trip. From logic to art to religion, are we on some kind of cosmic pilgrimage now?
You could say that. For Hegel, religion is a crucial stage in spirit's journey towards self-knowledge. It's where spirit grasps its own infinite nature.
Hold on, infinite. You've dropped that word a few times. Can you unpack that for our listeners? And for me, honestly.
Okay, so infinite, in Hegel's sense, means unbounded, limitless, beyond any finite category or concept we can come up with.
So not about physical size, but more like.
Think of the boundless nature of love or the endless possibilities of creativity.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. But how does religion help spirit grasp this infinite quality? Are we talking about specific religions?
Yeah.
Or just the general idea of faith?
Well, Hegel explores different forms of religious consciousness, but he's particularly fascinated with Christianity.
Christianity? Why Christianity?
Because he sees it as a powerful representation of the infinite entering the finite world, that idea of God becoming human.
Okay, yeah, the whole incarnation thing. But are we saying that we need to be Christian to understand Hegel?
Not at all. It's more about seeing those religious narratives as symbolic expressions of philosophical truths.
So it's not about blindly believing doctrines, but about reading the story of Christ as a kind of philosophical allegory.
Exactly. For Hegel, events like the incarnation, the crucifixion, the resurrection, they become metaphors for spirit's journey.
Okay, my brain needs a breather. Metaphors for what exactly?
The incarnation. That spirit entering into those limitations of human experience, becoming finite to understand finitude.
Like spirit's got to get down in the trenches with us to really get it.
Then you have the crucifixion that symbolizes spirit's willingness to embrace suffering, to confront those darkest aspects of existence.
Wow, like a trial by fire, a descent into the depths, but then...
Comes the resurrection, that spirit triumphing over those limitations, death, realizing its infinite nature, emerging transformed.
Mind blown. That's deep. So that this whole Christian narrative becomes a blueprint for spirit's journey towards self-realization.
And that brings us finally to the summit of the phenomenology, the realm of absolute knowing.
We made it. But can we even describe this absolute knowing? Is it even possible?
Think of all those metaphors we've used.
Yeah.
The river flowing into the ocean, the seed blossoming, the circle completing itself.
I'm with you.
Absolute knowing is the culmination of all that. It's where spirit fully recognizes itself as the ground of all being, the source of reality.
So not just knowing lots of facts or theories, but a fundamental shift in how we relate to reality. Like waking up to the truth that we're not separate from the universe, but expressions of it, part of that same creative force.
Beautifully put. And that realization can transform our entire understanding of existence. We're no longer strangers in a meaningless universe, but participants in this grand cosmic drama.
Wow. Co-creators with the divine, each playing our role in the unfolding of reality. This is exhilarating.
And that sense of awe, of wonder, that interconnectedness, that's the essence of absolute knowing.
It's not just a concept, it's an experience.
Exact.
Well, deep divers, what a journey it's been. We've scaled this philosophical mountain, from Kant ficti to the master-slave dialectic, from unhappy consciousness to the power of art, the symbolism of religion. We've arrived at this breathtaking vista of absolute knowing.
And I hope our listeners are feeling a little breathless too, in the best way possible.
If you're feeling a little overwhelmed, that's okay. Totally normal. Hegel's no walk in the park.
He's a philosophical marathon.
But if you felt a spark of curiosity, keep exploring. Delve into the phenomenology, see what treasures you find.
The journey of spirit is a lifelong adventure. Keep questioning, seeking understanding, and know that the universe, both of knowledge and of existence, is endlessly fascinating.
Until next time, keep reflecting, keep questioning, and keep embracing those infinite possibilities of absolute knowing. Happy exploring, everyone.
Hello. We teach Hegelian philosophy at HegelCourses.com from the Netherlands. Join us and transform your understanding of philosophy. Enroll today.